I was really pleased you could fit this in, you know, and it was so good to see you on the program and everything, and it's so good to have you in New York, and I'm really pleased you can come over. Welcome to MNA.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
My great good pleasure to welcome you, and to welcome you in the audience to Conversations. We have as a guest today Christine Ebersole, and she's a, well, she's a performing artist, she's a singer. She's won a Tony Award for her work on Broadway in singing and acting and performing, and she's also a lifelong, increasingly involved political activist, social concern with social justice and so forth in a meaningful and active way. She's a very interesting story to tell, and Christine, welcome really very, very much to Conversation Manhattan Network.
Glad to be here.
I wonder if you can, as I said to you, we start these programs, we've got a full 58 minutes. We're going to show a clip of a YouTube with some of your talent that is up on YouTube. But could you share your own background, born and raised, a little of your education, family background a little bit, and then we'll get into a discussion about your career and also about your view in terms of social and political justice issues and so forth.
Okay. I was born in Illinois in 1953, and I was the youngest of 4 children. My mother had 4 kids in 6 years. My mother was born and raised on a farm in Pennsylvania. My father was raised in Pittsburgh, in McKees Rocks, in the steel town of Pittsburgh. They met at Penn State, and they moved to, my father majored in engineering, and my mother majored in English, and we moved to Illinois in '53, and that's where I was born. I have a sister and 2 brothers that are older than me. And let's see, what else? I grew up in, I was born in Park Forest, Illinois, which is south of Chicago. And I moved to Winnetka when I was 8 years old. And I guess it was that time when I really sort of suffered culture shock, I think, because Park Forest was this very sort of middle-class suburb, and Winnetka was sort of an affluent
Upper middle class.
Upper middle class suburb.
Is that near Wilmette or no?
Okay. Like Lake Forest. It's called the North Shore.
Yes, right,
and,
right.
And actually, there's a lot of famous people that went to New Trier High School, where I went to high school. Donald Rumsfeld being one of them, so you could get an idea of the tenor. But that's not all. I mean, there was Rock Hudson and Bruce Dern and Anne Margaret and Charlton Heston.
Wow, show people.
Yeah, it's very interesting how they ended up there. And of course, I was in Guys and Dolls with the director Ed Zwick and Christy Hefner, who runs Playboy Enterprises now. We were in Guys and Dolls together in high school.
That's in high school.
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah, I see. Right.
In high school
so
together.
And you had an interest in the stage and so forth, entertaining and performing as you were young in high school. And
well, yes, I didn't. I actually played violin and piano, and I played the violin in the high school orchestra. And I think it was that moment. There was a defining moment when I was so interested in what was going on the stage, I missed my cue. So I think that was something that I really understood at that moment, that I would rather be on stage than in the pit.
I see. I've got you now. I see. Right. Okay. And that was in high school, right?
That was in high school.
And you had those interests all along. And the family was intellectually curious and welcoming and warm and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, my father
and also, I think if they were on the progressive side in terms of political, Vietnam was on the horizon.
That's correct. They were on the progressive side. My father claims that I was going to be this great dramatic actress from the day he first laid eyes on me in the bassinet in the hospital.
He was prescient, huh?
And my mother was really my first music teacher. She would just gather at the piano. As a matter of fact, on an album that I have, the first album that I made with my friend David Snyder, my father gave me a tape of me singing Jingle Bells at 3 years old.
How wonderful. Do you
at
still
Christmas.
Have it? Do you have it?
It's on my album, Live at the Cinegrill, which you've just remastered, which is going to be coming out in November.
I want to get that. I want that. You want the news on how I can get that.
Okay, all right. Well, you can get it on my website.
All right, good. Okay, good to know.
Anyway, it was totally on pitch at 3 years old, so that's obvious that it was a gift from God.
You and Mozart, he was totally on pitch.
Well, I think he was doing quite a bit more than I was at that age, but anyway, so where was I?
Well, you were in the throes of growing up artistic. Your mother was artistic in line.
Yeah, she was my music teacher. My father was really my acting teacher. He had this great voice. He was sort of an unfulfilled actor himself.
Really?
He was very dramatic and was a great lover of Shakespeare.
In everyday life.
Yeah, in everyday life.
Isn't that wonderful to have somebody that speaks with some real
Oh my God.
like have a Ronald Coleman for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, if you had to sort of measure his intelligence or his knowledge in degrees, he would have been a PhD, you know, in Shakespeare. So he would always answer any question you'd have about life. He would answer it in terms of some Shakespearean quote, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and the Shakespearean concern for important questions of the human condition and so forth that came out of his own consciousness. And he was concerned with justice.
Yeah. Well, it was, you know, we were sort of, it was really, you know, growing up in Winnetka, where it was just sort of the general, it was always this sort of bid to conform, and it was very, very conservative. And
Stepford Wives Company, or no? Not that bad.
No, I mean it's a beautiful place to grow up, but it's very exclusive. You know, there was a
gated almost community.
No, not really, but it just sort of, you know, you know, the religion was Episcopalian and.
High Episcopalian? Or?
Is there anything as low Episcopalian?
Yeah, well,
I don't think that exists, does it?
Yeah.
And you know, everybody's in country clubs, and I just as a child, I was very sort of aware of that. That we were Unitarians and we were Democrats, and everyone was Republican, and I was a redheaded with freckles, you know. So I you know, I didn't. I thought there must be something more than this outside. I felt
were you uncomfortable in your own skin, as it was, or alienated? Is that too strong a word for the way you felt about the world about you? Or
I don't know. Does everybody feel like they belong?
No, I don't know. I don't know how many
I don't think anybody does, really.
Nobody
I think that
does,
hopefully that comes when later on you feel a belonging. But I think there's so much when you're little that, you know, so much of the outside of you, you know, determines your self-worth.
I've said on many occasions, I think my favorite human beings are 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds are so honest.
Yeah.
They have no artifice at all. And they've
true.
got a tremendous imagination. And they're very creative. And there was a study by psychologists who drew that conclusion, that they took the measurement of what we call creative stance of consciousness, and they got it chronologic, and across the world, cross-cultural, it peaks at 5 years old.
It's all downhill from there.
It's all downhill to where we is now, you know. Yeah, right.
Well, I think, because I think when you're being socialized, when you go to school, then you become, and if you're sensitive and have any kind of modicum of intelligence, you become aware of sort of how you fit in to the whole system.
Or don't.
Or don't fit in, You
could read Eric Fromm.
Yeah, so I guess people in general don't feel like they fit in, but that's kind of the way I felt.
Yeah, perhaps. I don't know. Artistic people usually do. You have to be sort of outside the fishbowl in order to appreciate the water in which most people swim.
Maybe that's what it is.
Something like that. You know, I think a little mark of alienation or outside the creative. There have been some people who have taken creative, artistic perception people are in a certain sense akin to the criminal class. Because you have social norms that are sort of accepted and so forth, and they're creative. They're going to create something new, you know, or something different or something like that. You know, I don't know, I'm just musing sort of in a sense.
Well, that's interesting.
But were you when you were young and growing up, high school, violin, all that, were you feeling warmth in the family and all that? Were you alienated, or were you
no.
From society?
It was interesting because my family was very supportive of my creative endeavors.
And you were creatively inclined?
Yes.
Were you what they call precocious? Did you get into trouble with the law or anything like that?
Yeah, I was a little bit of, I did get a little, I was a troublemaker. Yeah. But
or authority figures?
I had
trouble with authority?
Yes, I have issues with authority. I've always had issues with authority.
Too,
I don't know what that comes from.
I don't know either.
I really
I don't know. I think we come from a similar kind of condition.
Yeah. But I did have trouble with authority. But I tell a story that's really quite wonderful. My dad had trouble with authority as well.
Okay,
you know, he was always talking about doing kitchen patrol when he was in the Army.
KP.
Yeah, KP.
KP.
That's
kitchen,
right.
Patrol. Yeah.
Kitchen patrol when he was in
grim.
the Army.
Yeah.
But there was a music teacher that I had when I was in 6th grade, and I sort of inherited him from my brother. My brother Tony had him before me, and so I followed suit. And I remember there was sort of this one sort of Yul Brynner moment where we were fifth graders coming to visit the school.
You're 10 years old.
And
so, yeah.
no, I think it's just,
11?
something like that, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but he comes barreling through the door like Yul Brynner and stands there with his hands on his hips. He goes, "There's a rumor going around that I hate sixth graders." Well, they're wrong. I hate fifth graders. And we're all just like shaking in our boots, you know. Well, of course, then I got him as a teacher.
Yeah, right.
But there was, I was kind of voted as the class clown. Was always kind of goofing around and making people laugh and things. Yeah. But so one day I was in the homeroom and making people laugh, and so he didn't like that too much, so he decided to read my report card in front of everyone. It wasn't a very good, it wasn't a good report card.
Not the deportment particularly, yes.
So it was so humiliating. It was such he was very kind of abusive like that. But so anyway, I remember going home and my father got wind of it, and he behind closed doors called him on he called the teacher.
Oh dear.
And called him out.
Oh, called him out.
Oh God, yeah.
For giving you a bad report card?
No, for reading my report card in front of the class.
Oh, because he thought you were going to do. What was your attitude when he read the report? You were in the class when he read it out?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
What was your feeling as that was going on?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Were you ashamed or
it was humiliating because
you weren't able to laugh at it?
No, it was a terrible report card.
I know, but you could have still laughed at it.
Not in seventh grade, you don't laugh at yourself.
You don't, because you're vulnerable then. Yeah, it's a tough time.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. No, but you know what I'm saying. If you were
Well, yes, as an adult, of course, but then right there, the adult world is very scary. I mean, it's, that's authority. That's an authority figure right there.
Yeah.
Putting you in your
place. So your father put that fellow in his place.
Yeah, he did.
And what happened?
Well, it gave me a sense of being supported in a way.
Yes, it gave you a great sense of camaraderie with your dad.
Well, but in a way, it was great because, to have an adult to be supportive of a child that's being threatened by the adult world.
Help me out here a second.
It gave me a sense of confidence so that, when I was an adult, I could deal with authority figures in a way and be less afraid, not as intimidated.
I understand all of that, but I have to get it straight if you don't mind, right? The fellow who came in with the Yul Brynner attitude and all that, I was laughing when you said that. I assumed he was being funny, but he was not. He was being serious?
It was his way of being funny, but as a fifth grader, it's very scary.
Oh, it was. He didn't immediately let it be known that was just a joke.
No.
You know what I mean?
He was very mean.
He was mean.
Yeah, he was
in his demeanor.
Yeah,
I thought he was being like a clown,
But it was his way of being funny. He could make you laugh, but he was a very scary figure.
Oh, I see. That's an interesting combination. I have a thing that I used to do, if I may. I'm kind of like a Will Rogers type. I like everybody more or less or something. But there's some people that are just beyond the pale and usually along the transom of authority figures that are sort of all arrogant and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I used to do it like that. It doesn't happen to me so much anymore. I'll share it with the audience if you don't mind yourself and that. I used to have a thing that would happen. And if I'm in a situation where somebody's being very arrogant and nasty or something like that and everything, I used to go to where I would be seeing the scene as though I was looking at a movie. Like you're looking at a movie screen. And it's Charlie Chaplin. And the camera was always over there. And it would happen if it was funny. And the guy's there's a term in Yiddish, I don't know if it's a bad term, schmuck. The guy's being a schmuck, right? And he's being authority and everything. And it would be like I'm looking at the movie, and then I would start laughing at the movie, like a Woody Allen movie. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it would be a way of dealing with those kind of situations. And I would say, isn't it interesting in my mind? It's a rationalization. In my mind, isn't it interesting? Central Casting has decided to send over a real schmuck. And he's really acting really well as a very nasty kind of person. And it got me over wanting to do violence or something. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
it's a defense mechanism to use humor.
Yeah, I understand that, but not in seventh grade. You don't feel that in seventh grade.
Yeah.
Those are all developing things. Those are all these sort of internal mechanisms that are not quite developed at that time.
Do you think we could start teaching that technique to seventh graders?
No, I think it's sort of a natural process.
It's a natural process.
It's sort of, it's just sort of happens in the course of your life.
Yeah. Well, I just put it out to the audience that if you have to have that kind of person come into your life, that's one way to sort of, a sense, to finesse it.
Well, I think that's just sort of a general...
And to then laugh at it.
Well, I think that in general, that's the way to be in life, is to be unattached.
Well, no. Well, yeah.
That doesn't mean to not have compassion, but in other words, you don't plug yourself into the drama.
Yeah,
of it.
in a direct way, you're at cause in a sense. You can be at cause at the thing because you're laughing at a movie one step removed. It's got something to do with theater, I think, or with show business, or people up on stage and so on. I went that night to a show, and it was so funny. It was so funny. I was laughing so hard at this, and I dealt with it. It all worked out well, the incident. It involved a person with a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. But I went to a show. It was a stage play. They were up on the stage, beautifully costumed, beautifully acted, beautifully written and everything. And I just seemed to me that scene that I had lived through with that fellow that day, I could go in detail with it, but I don't want to take up enough. But that life. I see Academy Award performances every day when I walk around in the streets. Cab driver going crazy and all this kind of a stuff, just in everyday life, you know. Am I off base on that? And it was more interesting what I'd lived through, that scene, than what they could ever put up on the stage or something, you know. My daughter's in theater. She's an actress and a director and everything. She thinks I'm a Philistine with that kind of an attitude. That I think life is really funny and really interesting.
Well, sometimes it's funny and sometimes it's tragic, and sometimes there's tragic moments. Tragic plus time equals comedy. So.
I guess so. Anyway, I didn't want to get off on my thing, on your thing, and you were doing the theater and thing. When did you get involved in the theater so that you became involved to where you came to New York and all that sort of thing?
I came to New York when I was 20 years old.
20, that's a very...
And I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
And you came with the idea of doing theater. You knew you wanted to, you were on that course and you knew you wanted to do it. You developed, did you study singing and so forth, or how did you get involved
I studied in high
business?
school, and I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, and I got an agent out of that. And in 1975, I graduated, and in 1976, I was on Broadway.
That quick?
Yeah, from waiting tables.
From waiting tables
I went from waiting tables to Broadway.
To Broadway in the chorus or in with lines? Were you with lines?
It was a play.
It was a play. Dramatic play or?
It was a play called Angel Street.
How'd you like that? Was that a good time? That must have been
exciting. Do you know, are you familiar with Angel Street?
No,
it was
not.
The movie Gaslight.
Gaslight, sure.
That's what it's based on, the play.
Oh, yeah, that's
Angel Street.
Yeah, that's
it's based on that play. So it was Angela Lansbury's first film role.
Oh, really? I know that.
And that's the part I played, Nancy.
You played Angela Lansbury's role? Did she add in Gaslight?
That's correct.
You were the maid, right?
Yeah, the maid.
Yeah, that's a heck of a movie. Ingrid Bergman, Charles Boyer. They don't make movies like that hardly anymore, I don't think, or do they? I don't know. How long did that run? And that was that's a serious role. Yeah, that's not singing and singing and dancing or music.
No, it was a play.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not.
And so you thought you were an actor. You're a great singer. You're a beautiful singer. That's an important part of it. Was that contemporary at the same time you were doing singing or the acting, or are they two different realms, two different approaches to the
Sometimes they're separate and sometimes they're combined in a musical.
So you enjoyed, that was your first role. How long did that run?
I think for me, I replaced Christine Andreas, so it ran for about a month, and then I was back waiting tables.
Back waiting tables.
For about another year, and then I started off on acting roles, and then I made my living from that ever since.
You were able to make your living in the business.
From the time I was 23 years old.
So you were in the business. You knew it from all sides and that kind of thing. You'd come from Winnetka, that kind of thing and everything. And so you would have been familiar with it all the way to movies like Tootsie and all kinds of things like that about the business. There's no business like show business. Why is it that so many young people, as it were, so many people aspire to be in show business, do you think, or in the realm of acting and that sort of thing, more than there seem to be opportunities for involvement, serious involvement?
Oh, I don't know.
What
I
is
think
there
you'd have
about
to answer that.
Stage?
I beg your pardon?
What is there about acting or being on the stage, let's say theater, as opposed to film, but we can go into that, that is so attractive to the consciousness of young people coming along?
I don't think it's just young people. I think it's everybody.
Okay.
I mean, I think, not everybody, but I mean, I think that is, for those that are so inclined, I don't think it's restricted to a certain age.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? There are more people that want,
I don't know, maybe they want fame, who knows?
I wonder, you think it is? They used to have, they had a series, Fame, based on the high school, the Performing Arts High School and that kind of thing in New York and that kind of fame. There is that. That's an attraction, movie stars, fame, glamour, that kind of thing. But it's also a calling and it's an art. It would be the same for somebody who does painting or does something creative. people that are drawn to things that are really creative, the creative arts and so forth, are giving generally short shrift in terms of if you line it up for how many places there are for accountants and things in this society. Do you understand?
I don't think that art is really, artistry is really something that's nurtured.
I think that's what
in
I'm
this
saying.
Society.
I think it's more nurtured in Europe than it is here, if I'm not mistaken.
They have patrons and things like that.
Yeah, and they have serious social and governmental support of the arts.
That's
and so
right.
forth. They have an opera house on every corner in parts of Europe, and whereas we tend not, we're less inclined that way than say other societies that give real credence to the things that are really creative and most important in life, other than just the mundane business of counting up beans or something. I'm just musing.
Well, I think there's a certain sort of freedom and self-empowerment that comes from the creative arts, and perhaps in a restricted society that's seen as threatening.
The creative,
Yeah, because it's about self-empowerment. I mean, it's about the story that you were telling before the cameras were rolling about your experience in California, that art is dangerous.
Art can be dangerous.
Art can be very dangerous.
Yeah.
When it goes, because the whole idea of creativity is that it goes outside of the box.
That's right. Like the court gesture. Court gesture used to be able to get away with it where nobody else could. Where you had an authority figure, let's say a king. A king had to assert great authority, or people that have authority over an institutional structure that is authoritarian, and most all of our institutions are, aren't they? It seems to me like that.
Yes.
And so there are people who call that into account. The tramp and chaplain and that kind of can be very...
they could make social commentary and have it be palatable and acceptable.
It might be the best way to do it in a very real sense, is to be able to poke fun at it, and so like The Great Dictator or those kind of things and like that. Anyway, you got involved, and when did you pick up on the singing and the musical?
I've been singing all my life. Like I said, my father gave me the tape when I was 3 years old, and I was singing on pitch. So
Jingle Bells.
It's something that I've always been able to do because it was a gift that was given to me when I was born.
Yeah, that's okay, and you did, and you sing. So talk some more a little bit about your career. We want to get around to some of the politics, and we do have a clip of you that's up on the YouTube. We want to let people know that. But your realm in your work in the realm of musicals and so forth. When did you get involved in that, and what some of it? And you did win the what is it, Tony Award?
I won it twice. Yeah.
You did. Congratulations. That's a great feat. That's for the theater, right?
Yeah, Tony Awards are for the theater.
And they're both in the realm of musicals. You won for?
I was nominated for I was nominated 3 times and I won twice.
Good for you. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one was for a play for Dinner at 8 that I did at Lincoln Center.
Okay.
And the ones that I won for was 42nd Street and Grey Gardens.
You were in 42nd Street?
Yeah.
It was at the revival of that. Oh. Dancing feet, da 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 da.
42nd Street.
Yeah, good for you.
Good.
And you won a Tony for that.
I won the
And what was your role there? I'm sorry, I don't follow theater very carefully. My daughter's really upset with me. I should follow it more carefully than I do. I'm always talking. But what was your role in that?
Dorothy Brock.
And was that a lead role, or was that a?
I won Best Actress. Yeah.
Good for you. And you were singing then too, right?
Okay. It was a musical.
And the Grey Garden, what was that?
Grey Gardens?
Grey Gardens, yeah. What was your role there, and what was the theme in that? That was
based on the Maisels film, Grey Gardens.
Okay, I don't know.
About
Maisels,
Edith and her daughter Edie Beale, who were the aunt and first cousin of Jackie Kennedy.
I see. Okay. Well, congratulations. And that was here in New York. You were mostly involved in New York. I know you've lived for some time in Los Angeles.
That was on Broadway, yeah.
That was on Broadway
That was
theater.
this past June.
Just now. Okay, that's really very good. You just won that. That's really good. You had a stint in California of your life, if I understand.
I lived in California for 14 years.
That's quite a long time. And that was after doing plays and so forth here. You went to California. Were you in show business there?
In California.
In California.
Yeah, I've been in show business for 31 years.
Good for you. Okay. Is it true there's no business like show business?
There's no business.
Business you know?
No, that's right.
Yeah, it is good.
Everything about it is appealing.
Yeah, everything the
traffic will allow.
Traffic will allow. Yeah, you got it down. Okay, that's good. What were you doing in Los Angeles? Did you get involved in film and that sort of thing?
Film and television.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I moved there in 1985, and I did, series and television series. I did film, and then we moved back here in 1999.
You did film. Did you do musicals, or what kind of film work did you do? Or how did that work? You had an agent or something, and then you would pick a, how does that work, I mean, because you were an actress, and you were also a singer, and it could deal with musical venues and that kind of thing.
Well, that, in television, they don't, that's just television. It's television series. And do you watch television at all?
I watch not very many series, and I watch a lot of C-SPAN, which is pretty different.
They don't do musicals
no, they
on
don't
C-SPAN.
No, but it's sometimes funnier than anything they can conjure up on the news channels, But anyway, or documentaries. I watch lots of documentaries, or things political and that.
Yeah, that's right. Everything's political.
But I don't know hardly any of the series that were very popular and so forth. I never seem to watch.
I was in a series called The Kavanaughs.
Okay.
With Barnard Hughes. And
you had a role in a series? It was a character that was in the series on an ongoing basis?
Yeah, I was starring in a series in Los Angeles called The Kavanaughs for CBS. And
was that a national feed? Was it across the country? Yes? Well, that's amazing. And what?
I mean, that's Broadway. Musicals are generally on Broadway.
MGM did a lot of musicals back in the old days. Anchors Away and all that.
That was
stuff.
before I was born.
Busby Berkeley and all that.
Yeah, back in the 30s.
They don't do it like that now, I guess, much anymore, do they?
Well, there's a resurgence of that.
Did you see Moulin Rouge, that film? I love that
it was
movie
wonderful.
with Kidman. It
but
was
there's
just beautiful.
there's Chicago and Hairspray, and they're making a movie of musical of 9.
Okay,
based on Fellini's movie.
So you've been involved in all aspects of it in that. All along, and you were in Winnetka back as Vietnam was hotting up. It sounds to me. If you were born in '54, you were just coming in. You were coming in your teenage on 20, and you were involved. And that was the nation was torn apart along about 1967, 68 over the Vietnam. Your family, you were involved in politics then. Or I wonder, maybe before we get into that, we have a piece of film. I mean, we have you have some film, some of your singing on YouTube, right? And we've selected a thing from the YouTube, right? And maybe you could talk. You could send us that. Why don't we run that, and then we'll get into the politics.
It's Grey Gardens. It's from Grey Gardens, from the musical I did.
From the musical Grey Gardens, this recent one, and it's you singing, and it's a piece that I think we can get it set up in the control room. It's up on YouTube now, and if one wants to access what you have a number of things on the YouTube, isn't it a wonderful thing?
Yeah,
you can put things,
I love
present,
YouTube.
get it out there. They could go www.youtube.com/your name, your whole name, and then they can get these clips. And we have one from the Grey Gardens, And what is the song? It's called?
It's called Around the World.
Around the World. So why don't we do, and we're just going to run it as YouTube so that the visual is not all spread out and that kind of thing. But we're talking with Christine Ebersole, magnificent star of stage, screen, and radio, as Mr. Jack Benny used to say. She's a very, very interesting person, and we'll run that piece now then, please. Thank you. If they can get it to come up. If they don't, we're going to have to talk it. Okay, there we go.
Guess what happened? What I felt was in the cards.